Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Total Disruption. Dr. Jake Clendenning on behalf of my partner, Michael Laversi. We've got a great episode for you guys today. We've got a guest speaker that we had come in that we're really excited to talk about. This is John Rennie with Brushfires Ministries. Call him JR. You're going to hear me say that a bunch today. And there's when I've read the forum and we've had the conversation, there's so much we want to get into, but you guys know how this one works. This is just all organic. We're going to kind of run with what we get to talk about today. So, John, tell us a little bit more about yourself, or JR. We'll go that way.
I'm a husband of 46 years, a father of three, grandfather of five, business owner, founder of the Brushfires Ministry. But most importantly, I'm a born again son of the Most High God.
All right. So JR, our audience is not typically used to Mike and I talk about it. I talk about God and I talk about faith and we talk about different things. In this, we talk largely business. So let's start there and transition into it. You come out of a long career in business, SaaS, software development. You started down that path. So kind of walk us through that, and then I want to hear the transition. Like you set me up for it, and then there's nothing there. So I want to know what's going on with that.
Myself and my partner back in 1987 started RLA, Rennie Lindsay Associates, and it's a software development company that developed software for ERP, MRP applications. So it's sort of accounting software for people with large inventories and complex costing and commission structures. And that was going great. Number of decades in business. And in 2015, because of a series of events with an employee, we lost 2/3 of our revenue. And so at the end of 2015, getting to 2016, I looked at the loss and I go, okay, this is not sustainable. I can't maintain this going forward. And I had two choices. I could either close the business and just take the money and run, or I could stop taking a paycheck, cut all expenses, and then see where God was going to go from there. And that was the choice that I made. I didn't want to leave my clients in North America high and dry, or my employees. So I then struck out and just looked for areas of consulting and so forth that would be able to benefit from my experience, which in the marketplace is in great demand and is very hard to find. Didn't get a single uh, uh, opportunity out of that, which is completely uncharacteristic of God. And by May of that year, going now 5, 6 months without a paycheck, I was really frustrated with God, and I said, "Okay, I know you're behind this. What do you want?" And it was about 4 months later, an acquaintance came up to me and says, "Hey, I teach people how to interpret psychometric assessments. I think you'd be great at it." Now, what I really heard was, "I charge a lot of money for this training. You got time on your hands. You should spend this money." And I told him, "No. 9, 10 months without a paycheck, you're very selective in where you make your investments."
Mm-hmm.
And I went home that night after telling him no, and I got this prompting: do it. This makes no sense, God. Why do you want me to do this? Psychometric assessment. I do it. I did it, and it led me ultimately to starting the ministry, because in the process of that near year-long training, what I learned was God wanted his children to be doing what he created them to do. And the psychometric assessments was a tool that I was going to use to facilitate that. And so in May of 2017, Brushfires Ministry was birthed.
That that's cool. So we were I was just having this conversation with my mom not 2 days ago. I promise you that I was. And we were talking about she did an online church because she didn't get up and go to church that morning. So once in a while she gets to cheat and she does the online of a church she's used to. And the minister was telling a different story about different direction that the Israelites were going, related to, when Moses was coming off the mountain, right? And they were becoming impatient and they started falling back into old habits and old ways and doing all the stuff that he said, no, you're not going to do that, until the tablets showed up. So for the audience, that's the basis of where the story was. But it was the discussion about that we were having. I think that story is about more along the lines of what you're talking about. I think the story has more to do with the fact that not, yeah, it's free will. It's still free will. We get to make a choice and do whatever we want to do, but God is going to demonstrate to you that's either the right way or that's the wrong way. He's going to put roadblocks up because you're not ready, or it's a roadblock because it's the wrong way. Right. So that was the discussion. We were just having this conversation. So it's remarkable. And of course, I don't prescribe to coincidence. So
Neither do I.
I was not done with that conversation. So now JR is here having this conversation with me today, which I love. It's so much fun. So we started Brushfire Ministries in 17.
Right.
And what was when you started it? What was the purpose?
Well, primarily it was to get to people where he had already led me to discover what my purpose was. A byproduct of our program is to come up after you've gone through the psychometric assessments through a coaching session. We develop what's called a purpose statement. And mine reads like this: I must strategically lead a gifted team to embrace the power of the God given design for long term positive results. I was contemplating that, and it really breaks down into three parts. I must strategically lead a gifted team. Well, okay, I've been doing that for decades as a business owner, soccer coach, ultimately a ministry founder, various things. Even when I don't want to be in leadership, I'm there. The last part, long term positive results. I was never really interested in short term returns. I wanted things that would actually last and have a legacy and scalable and so forth. That's how I developed our software. That's how I made my choices. And so that part made sense, and that's basically good fruit in people's life if you want to look at Galatians 5. That middle section is where I got hung up, to embrace the God-given design. And he had just shown me through the psychometric assessment training how to figure out somebody's design. But how do I get the church to embrace that? That was the challenge. And it led me to, all right, well, you have to write the curriculum. And as soon as I made that mental breakdown, or that mental contract, if you will, as soon as I made that, the name Brushfires Ministry was given to me. And so it was like, okay, you agreed to do it. I know you will because you told me you would do it, and this is speaking on God's behalf. And here's the name. This is what I want you to call it. And so I started writing the curriculum. Interesting enough, I found out that God had been writing it through my life for about 20 years without me even knowing it. And then I just I moved on from there. We did our first live workshop in February 2018.
Nice. Okay, so we did first live workshop. All right, so I want to unpack that a little more. To where you talked about, turns out the curriculum had been being written for the last 20 years. So back up 20 years, right? Let's back that one up because wow, that's great English today.
It's all
Because
good.
I want I want to unpack this a little further. Think back to that 20 years, right? The
Mhm.
first piece of the curriculum existed and it started to develop. What sign did you miss? Like, what do you think you didn't see in that moment? Or what was the catalyzer that said, all right, you're going to spend the next 20 years writing this curriculum because 20 years from now it's going to be needed? Is that do you think that's what the sign, what is at the time, or
Well,
did you miss a roadblock?
I don't think the time was right for me to actually do the ministry at that time.
Okay.
I think what it was is he was slowly developing the materials. It was over a course of 20 years too. So what happened, it was in 2004, uh, is when they released The Passion of the Christ. I don't know if you remember that
Mm-hmm.
movie. And when I saw it, it had the same impact on me that it did with many believers. That when the movie was over, all you heard was people sobbing. It was very personal for Christians, and it was very impactful for me. And as I'm driving home, we were about 30 minutes from the theater at that time, and I just had this image. Towards the end of the movie, the actress that plays Mother Mary, is at the base of the cross. And the director, Mel Gibson, told her, look directly into the camera. Now, our son was in the industry, film industry in Southern California. I had friends that were in that industry, and there's a number of things that I knew about that industry. One thing was, you never look at the camera. Every actor, every person that's on set told not to do that, but she was specifically told to do that. And that's still, and so he's zooming in on her. She's looking directly at the camera, and all I could hear in my spirit was, he did this for you. What are you going to do about it? So I've got this thought running through my head as I'm driving home in 2004 to our house, and my wife were just deep in contemplation. And all of a sudden is, what are you going to do about it? And then purpose, the whole concept of purpose came to me. There's a reason why we exist. There's a reason why we were saved. There's a plan in all this. And that's when I wrote, what is your purpose? It was a message that I gave at men's retreats and a couple others. And I thought, all right, this is the catalyst. It's going to go and it's going to create these things. It went flat. Nothing happened. I got great reports on the message and the content, but it just didn't go anywhere. And that was that timing thing. Okay. So eventually I kind of transitioned away from focusing in on that. And I would write other things. Like in 2013, I wrote an article called What is Joy? And these are just things I'm just trying to explore and figure out for myself, because they were things that were escaping my grasp. And all that was in the file folder that I had saved, along with short stories and poems and devotions I had read for whatever reason I took a photocopy of. And in May of 2017, when I had this, all right, you're going to write the curriculum, I thought, all right, I don't know where I'm going to start. Oh, I got this file folder. Let me pull it out. And I'm pulling these things out. I'm going, all right, that's chapter 1. That's chapter 2. That's chapter 3. The things that I needed for the curriculum, I can point to various things that we teach through that design workshop, and I can tell you the exact date that it was originally written, where that concept or where that thought came from when I first gave that message. And so that's what I mean that he's been writing it through my life for over 20 years, because literally he was putting together that thought pattern, that here's the problem, this is how you solve it.
And it's a body of work, right? And a lot of Sistine Chapel was not painted overnight. Rome was not built in a day. Take your, pick your thing that you want to grab onto there.
Right.
A body of work takes time to develop it. Plain and simple, it just does. So this was, to your point, you don't believe you were quite ready at that time. The timing wasn't quite right, but the curriculum was ready to start being built. So now we fast forward. We've got the curriculum. We roll out the first one in 2018. How did that act? Let's go this way. We know when you sit down when you do seminars, or you sit down, you do live trainings and things, the audience is impacted. We get that. Like, that happens. That's what this is all about. More interesting to me, because this is what brings you to us today, right? If that would have been on terrible, we wouldn't probably be having this conversation. So, like, how did that impact? What happened for you that day in 2018?
So it's an 8-week course. So we had to have people sign up for the course. And one couple, Mike and Tina, were in that class. Probably some of the most encouraging human beings I've ever met. There's another lady named Izzy. She was there too. And that's a different story for maybe further on down the road here. But Mike and Tina, extremely encouraging. Mike was into personal development, both self-development and physical development. And so they were the perfect people to be in that class. And they just encouraged me every class we did. They told other people about it who attended future classes. And so they were a real inspiration. So God had the right people in that first class for me to get my feet underneath me, to develop a certain confidence in presenting the materials, as well as just fine-tuning the materials themselves.
Love that. So that brings up a question about, I hear it a lot. I hear it a lot from the people that I coach. I hear it in the spiritual community overall is, well, if it's meant to be, it's God's will, or, that's in God's hands. But what I see them do with it is something different. Like they just put it out in the universe and then they sit there and do nothing with it. Versus
Yeah,
what I'm seeing that you did with it, like it, right. So give me your, yeah, I can see it on
yeah,
your
yeah.
face. You're
So,
heading
yeah,
the right
so
direction.
yeah, so that's just a cheap excuse. I'm sorry for
I
laziness. And
agree. I think it is
yes,
too.
so there's a story of two sons that were told by their father to go out and work in the vineyard. One son said, "Yes, Dad, I'll do it," and then doesn't do it because we into town with his friends and parties that day. The other son says, "No, I'm not going to do it," but then turns around and says, "I love my father. All right, I'm going to do it." Which son was found to be praised by God? It was the one that said no, but eventually turned around and did it. There is sweat equity. There is work that Christ did that we could never do for our behalf, okay, and that is paying for our sin debt. But there is work for us to do. In Luke, I believe it's chapter 14, Christ says, "Unless you are willing to carry your cross, to pick up your cross and carry it, you cannot be my disciple." All right, so when I first read that, it was like, all right, well, I don't expect to be crucified on the cross anytime soon.
Yeah, it's a tad extreme.
This doesn't make any sense to me. But you need to understand what the metaphor was really talking about. Christ was sent here for one purpose, and that was to pay our sin debt. How did he pay that sin debt? By dying on a cross. His purpose from his Father, which he debated with his Father in the Garden of Gethsemane, not one I will, but yours will be done, is paying that sin debt in that way. He knew exactly what he was created for, and he picked up that cross and went and paid for it. What was Dr. Jake created for? What was JR created for? We were created in a similar form. I mean, we're not sinless, but we were created for a purpose. Believers and non-believers are created for a purpose. Those that have accepted Christ as their Savior now have the power and authority to actually walk it out. So,
Mhm.
what were you created to do? Were you created to teach? Were you created to lead? You created to counsel people with deep trauma, or to coach those that need to be mentored to move forward? Are you an evangelist? Are you a prophet? Are you have an apostolic calling on your life? Figure these things out, and then pursue it. What our what our ministry does is that we give a language to your design so that you can understand it and to be able to walk that out. Think of it from this
Okay, so I
perspective.
want to I want to hold on a second. I
Okay.
want you to say that again because I want to make sure the audience absolutely understands that. That was a powerful statement. What your ministry does.
Yeah, we give a language to your purpose, to your design, so that you can understand it. It actually forms a sentence at the end, much like I just shared with you earlier in mine. And that language allows you to see the uniqueness of your design. Every child of God is unique, not just in fingerprint and DNA, but your purposes and how He intends to use you here in this world. And it's your job to figure that out and then be obedient to that calling. So just like I was there when I was contemplating my purpose statement, and I said, all right, I guess I'll write the curriculum. That was part of my process. So the unique thing about our ministry is that we give a language to that so that you can understand it. You can see the uniquenesses of your design compared to your children, compared to your parents, compared to your spouse, your coworkers, your members of your church. And you begin to see it from a perspective of a puzzle. We are all designed to fit together in the body of Christ, one body, where we work together to accomplish God's will. Now, some of that has to do with simply running a church and all the things that are involved in that. Others are for parachurch organizations like what we've created, which is out there to minister across the board to multiple groups of believers. Whatever happens to be, you won't feel fulfilled and content in your life until you've actually applied yourself to what it is that God's created you to do. One of the things that he's taught me, Jake, is this: is that we are always looking to address our physical needs as far as nutrition. You know, we breathe, we drink, we eat. You know, we're doing these things to make our body healthy. The soul is starving for the nutrition that God has for it. What is that nutrition? It's the fruit of the Spirit. The thing that can solve depression, anxiety, lack of fulfillment, discontentment, all those things: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self control. These are gifts that nourish your soul. They address the feelings, emotions, and false beliefs that you have. They nourish that part of our being in a way that nothing else can. And so, what we do is show you by being obedient in those areas, God returns through the Spirit this nutrition that allows you to grow in your faith, in your purpose, allows you to be more intimate with God because you are in a working relationship with Him, not working against Him, and you are um, being used much like Christ was in what you were created to do. You are picking up your cross and you're walking through this world to accomplish God's will.
So the first time that you did, the assessment came into your life, right? It
Uh,
showed up, and not kind of,
yeah,
yeah,
unwanted.
yeah, unsolicited. It showed
Yes,
up into
yes.
your universe, and that's some of the coolest part about it. And the audience has heard me say it so many times. I don't prescribe to coincidence, and that's exactly what that is. So you took the first time you took, because you were looking at that point, right? You were asking the question, what's the will? What's my purpose?
Right.
Where, to show me where I'm going. And I make this joke all the time with my family. I'm like, I read English really, really well, and I have really good eyesight. However, I am blockheaded and stubborn sometimes, and I would love to just get the email that says, "Here's the plan, do
Right.
the thing." But that's not how it works. It's not how it works. We have to search, we have to toil, we have to pick up the cross and bear it. Like, we've got to do the thing. So the first time that you saw your assessment results, like, what was your reaction to your assessment? What did you find at that moment?
So I took it alongside my wife, who, again, we just celebrated 46 years of marriage. So I know probably,
Congratulations.
thank you. I know her probably as well as any other human being in this world that I know. So I got the benefit of seeing it from my perspective, but then also watching her results and understanding she answered the exact same questions, and yet it revealed something different in her. And so that was the very first thing was these things are accurate. I mean, at that point, I would have been 57, 58. And so, I had taken a number of different assessments, and some of them were fun and so forth, but nothing had nailed me like this. And then because my wife was besides me taking the same assessments, I was like, and the same questions nailed her in a very different way. And so it allowed me to be able to vet it and understand that, wait a minute, there's something here. That folder that I had of things that I'd written and devotions and so forth. I can't tell you what specifically prompted me, but I would read a devotion, say, "My daily bread." I'm going, that is important. I would go to my copier that I have in my office, make a photocopy of it, make a note on it, stick it in that folder. So when I hear truth and I hear something that's like, pay attention, I pay attention. And so when I'm watching this, and my initial after the first 2 weeks of training is like, these things are unbelievably accurate. It's like these are things that most people would not get right about me that know me, and yet I know that they're right. So that was the first thing was like, pay attention. This is important.
So then
And
there's a courageous factor here. There's a piece of, you got the email. Like, that's what happened. Is, here's the assessment, here's what the assessment says, here's what you're supposed to do. What did you have to do at that moment? Like, what occurred that you said, yes, I agree, I'm marching down the path, I see it, I hear it, I feel it, I'm doing it?
Well, during that course of that 9 months of training, there's a couple things. First of all, it was being taught from a secular perspective because these assessments were used primarily in multinational corporations. So there was no Christianese really involved in any of this. But at some point, God made it clear to me, I want this for the church. My response was, good, you do that. I'll applaud you. I didn't realize that he wanted me to introduce this to the church. So that was the end result of that in May of 2017. But it's a slow process. You never get that full plan. I still don't have the full plan today. You know, I thought at the beginning of 2024, when we released the video series of our design workshop, I thought, okay, that's it. But what God showed me was, and this was from our personal experience in coaching people that went through it, we would take them to the mountaintop of seeing their design as God created them to be. They would confirm it. Their advisor that was with them as a personal friend would confirm it. They would take it into prayer afterwards, get it confirmed. They had this certainty that this is what God created them to do. And then we would send them back to the churches, and nobody walked them out. Nobody mentored them. Nobody helped them. Nobody guided them. It's a unique, bullheaded personality that God's given me that says, here's what I want you to do. Now go do it. People like that are few and far between. They can get easily distracted by the problems of the world and situations and so forth, and they don't persevere. They need leaders, they need mentors that will actually guide them. And so, after a number of years of taking people to the mountaintop, and much like Moses, showing them the promised land of what God has for them, but not being allowed to enter because nobody was leading them in. And that's where the whole thing about discipleship came into play. We've got to deal with that. We have got to give church leaders, counselors, coaches, mentors, the tools to be able to lead people into this. And that's where it said I must I must strategically lead a gifted team. That's the aspect of that purpose statement that I'm now living out. I'm building the team of coaches and church leaders and counselors that can see this. I can train them on how to use the tools that we've developed, and we can then multiply our efforts into the lives of the individuals that the disciples are closest with. A person in Atlanta, Georgia doesn't know me from Adam, but they know the pastor, they know the elders, they know a close friend that's a counselor. They know them. And so if I can multiply what God's shown us and what we've developed through Brushfires Ministry into their lives, then they can then multiply it out. And that's where Brushfires comes in play.
Brushfires, yes. We got to make sure. Yeah, exactly. So we're straight up out of time. That went really fast, and I love conversations that do that. That it's like, man, we have to stop. So I ran your website across there. It's See, even I can fight with it. Brushfires-digital.com is the website. And you've got your free gift that you're giving away. Everybody can check it out. It's brushfires-digital.com/user-access. Check it out on the bottom. Click through that. JR, this has been great, man. I really, really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to our audience connecting with you more. And I'm so grateful for the conversation today.
I take these opportunities as just to see what God's going to do, and either through your audience or through you, we need people to come alongside us and to help build this ministry. So thank you for the opportunity.
Amen to that. With that,